This is the tips and tricks for club secretaries. My name's Phil Grigg. I'm from Shelton Skookum Rotary Club. I was a secretary for 9 years before I entered the presidential chain, and now I'm a past president and assistant governor. And Greg is from the Lakewood Club, and he's still the current secretary. He's hung in there for about 15 years, he told me. So between us, we probably have about 24 years of being a club secretary, and there's probably some of you out there who have more than that. So anyway, so now I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and he is going to take us through the show.
As Phil said, I'm Greg Rudisky from Lakewood Rotary. I've had a couple different stints as secretary before I was president and after. I'd like to thank all of you for attending this training session. It shows that you care about your Rotary service and want to do better at it. So I applaud you all for doing this, and hopefully Phil and I can add something to the mix here. One of the key, what we'll be focusing on mostly is your duties as secretary. At the end of the whole thing is a whole bunch of slides on Club Runner, and one of our polls will be on how many are using Club Runner. But if we have time, we can go through some of the Club Runner stuff. For the 11 new people here, if you just found out that you're going to be the club secretary, which one are you? And we're hoping you said 3. I hope you're excited about it, because you know, I've been secretary a long time, and I think it's the coolest job in the whole club. I mean, you are at the center of everything. You're central to how your club works, without stressing you out about that. But without a secretary that is involved and enthusiastic and helping the president, you're not going to be as good a club as you could be otherwise. The key for secretaries is to be organized, and when you're done organizing, organize some more. And it becomes, once you're organized and you've got it down, it's not hard. It's not a hard job at all, I don't think, anyway. And if you're not organized, be enthusiastic, I guess, and hopefully you'll be happy in the job, because, and like I say, I just think it's you know where all the bodies are buried as secretary, and it's a fun position to be in. This is a slide showing the secretary's role, and one of the things about club secretary in our district, or any district, as I've discovered, is there's a lot of different expectations for secretaries. Some secretaries fulfill some membership or treasurer roles. Some are doing a lot of work, more work than others, with new members and that sort of thing. So some of it's just going to be what your club expects from the secretary. And once you know what your expectations are, the next thing is figure out when someone's not doing something, and figure out who's going to do it, or you've got to do it. Like I say, my own opinion is that the secretary fills all the holes as they come up. I mean, it's like I say, it's a great job, and hopefully you don't find it a pressure-packed job, but it is a vital job. You have key relationship as a secretary, and my own, you know, obviously you're as secretary, you end up getting to know the members better than anybody, because you're involved day to day with attendance and so forth. And the board, obviously you're at board meetings and you're communicating with them and the treasurer, obviously. But by far, in my opinion, the most important relationship is with the president. I found you can make or break a president. And a secretary, when I was not secretary for a while, not to build myself up, but we had a person that volunteered in the meantime, and she was a really nice gal and really meant well and appreciated her volunteer. But she didn't get the stuff. And the presidents I know that's worked with her were pretty frustrated, because they ended up having to do a lot of her work and so forth and so on. I just think as a secretary, you're there to build the president up and help the president through his year, because it's always a stressful thing for any new president. You know, they're in charge, and it's a 1-year commitment. So I know one president I had, when we had a head table, I'd sit next to him and he'd tell a joke before the meeting started. And then, you know, after the joke was done, he'd sit down and want to know if it was okay. Was the joke okay? Was it good? You know, was it good? And I'd always reassure him, you know, and you want to build your president up like that and let him know, but you want to be there for the president and do what you can to build them.
So there's going to be some important roles, and the first role you have is you're basically the membership. You do a lot of membership tasks. Now, you're not necessarily the membership chair. However, you're setting up the new members after whatever your process is for approving new members into the club. You're updating the membership database, and that includes existing. Half the time, people don't get in and work, especially if it's club runner, and they want you to do stuff. So you have to know how to change passwords, when somebody resigns, how to get them off the books, and then transferring, which is a whole separate piece itself, which sometimes gets a little complicated. One important thing to do is you've got to get your membership on your books up to date twice a year, and we'll talk more about that a little later. But December 31st and June the 30th is when you get your semi-annual invoice from IRI and district. So another thing you do potentially, and we don't do this in our club a lot anymore, but take weekly attendance. Hasn't been a secretary job in my club for quite a while, but some secretaries do it, and you can report your monthly attendance to the district. There's functions on Club Runner to do that. And makeups, you can do that if your club is doing that. When people can make up a meeting. And now the new rule that started at the beginning of this Rotary year is makeups go for the whole year. So you can give the credit for the whole Rotary year. Another secretary role is to help on the financial stuff. And if you're secretary treasurer, then you're doing both anyway. But to work with the treasurer for monthly billings and basically help the IRI and district billing be accurate. There is a dues and billing module on Club Runner. Some people use it, some people don't. I've never used it. Our treasurer has, and I hear reports on it works really slick or it can be clunky. So another role you have is administration. So basically this is the record keeping function. Maintain club records, managing the official club documents like board meeting minutes, annual meeting decisions, that kind of thing. In the December timeframe, and Greg will have a list, don't worry about writing this down right now, and it's in the slideshow, about when you have to update your club executives and directors, and that has to be done by the end of the year. So people can get it put into their directories, and RI can have all the responsibility functions changed when June 30th rolls around. So there is also potentially updating club meetings and times, mailing addresses, etc. And we've had a lot of time changes recently with everybody going virtual. And we talked about minutes. And one important thing that you should know, not so much the club constitution, because I think that is pretty much dictated by RI for each club, but the bylaws, because the bylaws from club to club can change depending on what your club's interested in. But I found when I went to board meetings, I always took a copy of the bylaws with me to the meeting, because once in a while up would come an issue where we'd have to go to the bylaws and see what we needed to do about that. Okay, so the meeting minutes, basically some people write lots and lots of detail on that. I was more like write the attendees, who's there, what the motions were and their outcomes, and any action items. Did not need to be a verbatim who said what in what we did. It was just what was the result, what was the motion, and what was the result of the motion.
This is kind of a real an important slide, really, because if you get mixed up on misses some of these dates, everything kind of snowball in a bad way. But Phil addressed some of these briefly, but basically June 1st, whoever's doing the invoicing, make sure it's the treasurer, and most people have the treasurer doing it. In our club, it's the secretary's job. But you need to make sure those annual invoices are generated by the 1st of June. And then the key for that is by the time you get to June 30th, you need to make sure that everyone that was billed is going to pay. Because on July 1st, RI hits you with an invoice, and so whoever's on the roster at that time, they're going to invoice you for 40 whatever dollars it is for the first half dues. So I always make it especially, there are some people that that are just slow and they've been a member forever. You don't have to worry about them, but there are others that are maybe not as participating in the meetings and so forth, and you worry that they're going to stay in the club. And if they haven't paid by June 30th, you need to reach out to them directly and say, are you staying in the club or are you going to pay? And it's one of my great frustrations that seems like every year I do this, and then someone says, oh yeah, I'm going to stay. And then 2 months later, they say, never mind, I got to quit. And so in the meantime, your club is out 40 some dollars, whatever it happens to be that year, to pay RI. So it's critical to do the best you can to make sure that anyone that is invoiced is in fact going to pay before July 1st gets there. Along comes November, and I don't, again, in our club, the secretary doesn't necessarily do it, but in my opinion, the secretary is kind of the oversight committee, I guess. You want to make sure there's a new officer voting procedure is taking place, because that's supposed to be done by December 31st. And then sometime in January, you need to post all that on Club Runner. And if you don't have Club Runner, post it on the RI website and the district website, because they all want to know who the new president-elect is and all the other officers. So make sure the voting takes place by December 31st. Also December 31st. It's the second billing from RI. They bill twice a year, July 1st and January 1st. So on December 31st, same story as on June 30th. If you still got some people that haven't paid, you better have the check in hand or drop them, I guess. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at doubling the 40 some dollar pain of June 30th. So you just want to make sure your roster is in fact accurate at that point. And finally, sometime in May would be a good time to order your supplies that you need for the new year. In our club, for instance, it means the past president's outgoing president's gavel, the past president's pin, a new name badge for the past president, any gifts for outgoing board members, etc. So whatever it is your club does at that time, at the July 1st changeover of duties, make sure you get all those supply orders placed at Russell Hampton. Other ongoing duties, Phil mentioned the bylaws section, and this I think is really important that the secretaries stay on top of these bylaws, because we do all file with the federal government, and we have some legal obligations. And if you're not following your bylaws, you neither need to change the bylaws or change your procedure. And sometimes things will, like you may change how you deal with blue badge members, for instance. And some of these things are less important if you were involved in some kind of legal issue. But nevertheless, I think it's always a very good idea to make sure you are following the bylaws. As far as new members go, this, in my opinion, is the most time-consuming issue for me as a secretary, and that is how you set up a new member. And again, a lot of this is going to be dependent on what your club does and the procedures that you follow. What Phil does in his club is different than what we do. So if you're a new secretary, it's critical to get with that old secretary and get as many of the details down as you can, and then have that person's phone number available so you can call them when something was forgotten. 3, there are confirmed red badge to blue badge duties. Again, this is specific to each club. Phil's is different than ours. In our case, we have red badge things you have to do to get your blue badge. And it's a question of who's monitoring the progress of the new member. And is it you or is it membership? And ultimately, as I said, it's you. Secretary is the buck stops there, in my opinion. And then as far as attendance goes, we had several clubs that don't do attendance in that previous poll. My own belief is it's a very good thing to do, even though nobody cares at district or anything else. Back in the old days, everybody watched what your attendance was. The president's effectiveness was measured by it. And, People went out of their way to try and get all the makeups they could, and it was a big deal. It's not a big deal anymore, but I think attendance at Rotary meetings is indicative of the strength of your club. And we have some members that never come to a meeting or rarely come to a meeting, but they're very good members because they do, they have reasons why they can't come, but they do a lot of work for the club at various times. You're not worried about them. But the ones that don't come to the meeting and don't participate in any of your duties, you either need to try and mentor them, try and get them back in the fold, or realize that they're probably not going to be around long. So I think attendance is a good temperature gauge of where your membership is at. So club secretary, I'm expected to know everything about everything. Ain't it the truth? So again, the buck stops with the club secretary. It's a great position to be in. I hesitate to be too expansive about that, but because I don't want to put pressure on you new people and make you worry about it. It'll all work out one step at a time. But it is it's a good position to be in, because you do make a difference, and that's what you're in Rotary for, make a difference in the world. And as secretary, you make a big difference in your club. Again, we've talked about this, that each club is kind of different. There's a lot of different responsibilities that go here, there, and everywhere. But again, the buck stops at the secretary. You can make a president look good or not. So just try and be aware of what you're supposed to do, and then pick up the pieces when something gets dropped somewhere along the line. Most people are in Club Runner. The highest level of access in Club Runner is a 30, and the normal access is 70. For regular members is 70. 50 is secretaries need to be at least 50 in order for them to do their job. I'm 30, and you don't want too many people having 30, because that is the ability to do anything essentially on the website. So you don't want that going helter skelter. But I personally would encourage secretaries to be at 30. There's lots of things that I do there that I need it for anyway. But at the very least, make sure that someone sets you up for a 50 on Club Runner. As of July 1st, RI knows about you, district knows about you, and you're going to have full access as a secretary on the district and RI sites. So be ready for that. And then the old secretary, if there is one, won't have access. So just be aware of that, and be ready at July 1st to make sure everything goes forward properly.
So we're going to have a few high-level screenshots right now just to show you access. Some people have not been secretary yet, and they may not have accessed some of the screens we're going to show. So this is my club's homepage on Club Runner. So you can see the functions we put out there. We just finished down on the menu items. You see the scholarship form. We just completed our scholarship process virtually in our club, so that worked pretty well. But anyway, the main point here was, if you haven't been in to Club Runner before, you've got to go through the member login function, and that'll bring you to a sign-on screen that looks something like this. And thank you, Campbell River, for your screen, your homepage screenshot there. But anyway, you put your login name and your password, and the secretary is generally responsible for assigning the first password that the new members get. So they have the option in Club Runner to change that. They can change their profile information, and that's discussed in the screenshots we talked about later, which we may not get to. So, and this brings you to this screen, which I couldn't fit and have it make sense, but basically the new members will get My Club Runner, which is the top left-hand section, which is the functions they get. The other function pieces, there's the membership manager, the website manager, there's basically all the documents that the secretary, et cetera, needs. A lot of functions are in the bottom left-hand side of this screen. You can't see it here, but that's the admin screen. It's a little clunky. It's all kind of point and click and menu driven, but it works really well. Club Runner has a really good database, in my opinion. Its user interface isn't as good, but hopefully they will work on that and bring it a little more up to date. But they're always making improvements on things. So you probably need to keep in touch when you get a message up in that top area there from Club Runner. You probably need to read that message and see what it says, because sometimes it'll tell you when the system's going to be down for enhancements, etc. So this is the district page. So this is from the district, a snapshot of the district website. You have access, everybody who's a member has access. And sub-clubs, I know, use the district site to actually maintain their records. And there is a place in there. I don't use it as much. I never did use it when I was a club secretary, because we had our own club site. But there is a place where the secretary can go in and add new members, change and store documents and things like that. So we don't plan on going into that much detail today. I will say that if you're integrated, if you're synchronized, then that same member login and password works on the district site. And that they will be reading that information from your club website, uploading it continuously, and that will get you into that same membership looking screen. And sorry for the old theme logo here, but we were using slides we could get a hold of fairly quickly. But anyway, it's the same kind of process. Login password, it's the same password as the club password that member has. So, and that will get you to the district page, which looks similar, but there's different things on it. So you have to reorient yourself on where pieces are. And on the district site, down the bottom right, it says for club executives. That's where you, if you want to do some stuff on the district site, some extra stuff, or this is the site you use for your club records, then that's where you go, down that bottom right hand side. There's other pieces of the website which are only available to the district council. There's a piece that's about my club, which is up above, where presidents, the club executives also have some, and general members have access to that area. It's up in the top right hand side. And this is the IRI site, which is a totally different piece of technology. It's not Club Runner. It's a website that's developed by the IRI folks. It's a different, you have to set up your whole, a new sign-on and a new password. You have to know your IRI number when you set up your credentials to get in there. But you can see that you get in there by signing in. And it kind of, sometimes I sign in, and I think other people experience this, it takes a while to recognize that it's you and come back with your name in the top right-hand side when it identifies you. But you can come in, there's a whole bunch of functions there. The main thing you will do as club secretary is in the manage section. And it's managing, there's club management, district management, foundation, RI foundation management, and all that kind of stuff. But the main area you will probably go to, oh, there's two areas on here, is the club and district administration, which is in the top left of the manage function. And also probably the Rotary Brand Center, which is underneath that, down on the bottom on the left. But that's where you can get the latest theme pictures and stuff to be, to put on your website at the beginning of the year. So we're all in sync with this year's theme, and also any other kind of materials you want to use for any event you have, etc. Rotary's pretty particular about branding now. So they've got guidelines on how what kind of branding they would like to see on materials.
As far as the RI website goes, I've had various problems with it when you do the search function, getting to where you want to be, and it's very frustrating. And I've been told that the better way to search for something on the RI website is to go to Google and search it there. They have a much better search engine involved, because a lot of times you say you want a membership supply item or whatever, and it gives you these unrelated things on the RI site, but Google will get you there a lot quicker. So if you're running into trouble with a search on the RI website, try Google instead.
So here's like Greg's slide earlier, which had the key dates on it. This slide is a useful one to keep as well. So we've got the RI website, Rotary.org, district website, Rotary5020.org, The district directory is not going to be published in paper format as much anymore. I think it's on a, you have to ask for it if you want it printed, but it's online all the time, and it's usually more up to date than the paper copy, which is printed once a year. But these are the sites you can go to. People you need to talk to, I found a lot, is the other district secretaries. You can find them in that district directory. You can give them a call, and they're usually always friendly and willing to help you get through your initial questions about being club secretary. Past club secretaries, Greg talked about that. It's important that you get to know them and they get their information that they can show you before the year starts, because after the year starts, guess what? They don't have access anymore. So you have the access. So they won't be able to help you unless you sign on. Anybody in this session, we have a list of participants. You can call them too. And there's Club Runner. That's their support line. A lot of club secretaries, including me, when I came in, I actually implemented the website for the club. That's how I got to be secretary, because nobody else knew how to do it. And one way I learned a lot of things is to send them an email. And they're pretty good at getting back within 24 hours with an answer for you. And I've talked to them on the phone, and there were a few times where they actually took over my machine and showed me how to do something. So they're pretty good and pretty friendly, and that's their phone number. There is a training on the IRI site for secretary training. I've been through some of that. I've heard reports from other people that when Greg and I were first asked to do this session, we said, well, it's on the Rotary website, and people gave us the look, like, are you kidding me? That's no good. So anyway, there is a lot of material there. I believe it's like a 4-hour session is what they say is the average time to get through that. But it is available, and it might be helpful. And then there's Greg. There's his contact information. And there's me. There's my contact information. If you really get stuck, you can give us a call, and we'll try and help you out.
I kind of want to reiterate what Phil was saying too about Club Runner. Sometimes, especially the bulletin aspects of it, can be less than intuitive, but and there are other things that are clunky, but I found their support to be the best I've ever seen on any website. They, like Phil said, they get back to you right away. They're very, very helpful. So the site has its problems, but they are very, very attentive to those problems. Especially if you're a new secretary, starting early is key. You should have started before now. But the quicker you can get with the club secretary, if you're a new secretary, and just write everything down, like I say, get organized, know what you're getting into, kind of thing, when to do what, and with the dates that we've given you and so forth. And take a deep breath, and everything will be fine, I assure you. But and if you're an ongoing secretary, like I say, I feel very strongly that your relationship with the president is critical to the success of the club. And so the earlier you get with them and say, what are you expecting to do? What are you expecting from me as secretary? And then just be there for the president as often and as you can be. Help the president succeed, and then the club will succeed. Somebody also wrote in one of the questions I saw in the chat room here, is trying to keep up with that, but was about emails getting bounced back that go through Club Runner in the email message center or the bulletin. And we've had that frequently too. And there is a statistics page there where you can go and look at the email blast and see who had them bounced or whatever. And sometimes you can click, you can fix that right there, but a lot of times you've got to contact the person whose email was rejected, and they have to make sure they add the Club Runner email to their contacts, which will allow it through. Sometimes there's absolutely no reason for it. And so if you can't fix it, again, call Club Runner and say, here's my problem. This member has got this email. They've done all this, and we still can't get it to work. Working with Club Runner can fix that, but it can be an ongoing problem, and it's good to every now and again check those statistics.
Yeah, one thing I found out, Greg, and I just had this happen the last week, is that some people don't realize their spam filters are turned on. and they won't get the email, and then they'll claim you never sent it. And other people change their emails and don't keep Club Runner up to date on how to get a hold of them. So that's another common error as well. So it pays to talk to the person first, like Greg said. So I think we can take some questions now. I remember we got a question on syncing, on how syncing your website. There's a sync button on the administration page, if I remember correctly, and you click that and it will sync all the information about your members from your club website to the district website and to Rotary International. For a new member, Rotary International will go back into the new member setup screen, and you will see an IRI number populated in there. And I used to use that to let people know, this is your IRI. Thanks, welcome to the club. Here is how you use Club Runner. I have a skeleton email, I'm sure many of you have, which kind of give them basics on what you set their password up on, and how to change it, how to change their upload. They don't like, I used to take a mug shot of them at their first induction meeting, and a lot of people didn't like that picture, but that was a good way to get them in, was to put a bad picture up and they go in and change it. So there was also a question, I think sometimes you set up a member and you get a note back from Club Runner that there's some problem and you don't really know what it is. We got that question earlier. And often we found that by the time as club secretary you go in and investigate the error, it's already been fixed. It's usually not a problem with what you did. It's some kind of problem that Club Runner have. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I submitted a couple of questions on chat. If you just work down that.
I think Greg's doing that, right, Greg?
Yeah, but I may have missed it, so.
What do you want to state your question?
Oh, you're assuming I have a memory. They were a little bit off subject. Let me just try to think. One, you were talking about attendance, and we've had discussion in our club. I thought I've heard from RI that attendance is not sequential. So that, for example, a member has perfect attendance for 3 years, they miss year 4, but they come back to year 5. They get 4 years perfect attendance. There's some discussion that no, in fact, a perfect attendance has to start over. I'm hearing 2 different stories. As secretaries, what's your experience?
Well, when we've had somebody who left our club, we put them on a leave of absence, where that would be if they had leave of absence for.
Not at all. It's just if somebody doesn't have perfect attendance, they miss, 6 meetings the next year, but then they come back and they continue with perfect attendance. Do they get perfect attendance for 4 out of those 5 years, or do they have to start over? It has nothing to do with leaving the club.
Okay.
My feeling is that you want to keep the customer satisfied, as it were. So, I mean, we haven't dealt with the perfect attendance thing for a while. It used to be a really important thing for a lot of people, but now attendance being what it is, nobody takes that much ownership of it anymore. But if you've got someone that really takes ownership of their perfect attendance, I'd make them happy and just be, liberal with makeups for the 6 meetings they missed or whatever. That's my own personal opinion anyway.
There is no standard policy because perfect attendance is not something that RI recognizes. They think it's detrimental to membership.
I think that's a two-pronged kind of a deal because, like she said, some members really like it. Some members could care less. We use it so that members can use anything they do, as long as it's Rotary, towards their attendance. So it's really what a policy you establish in the culture of your club.
If you attend a committee meeting, that's a makeup. But one of the new things we started this year is if a member wasn't at the meeting and they read the club bulletin and then they email me, I count that as a makeup. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it serves the purpose of being involved with the club. It's a little more work for me, but I think it's a good thing that we started. So.
There's a question on there about a leave of absence. Do they continue to pay RI? Yes, they do. I think it's a club policy on whether they pay club dues. I know our club included meals in the club dues, and we basically forgave them that kind of expense, but they still had to pay their district and RI dues.
Someone's having trouble entering members. Christine. I guess I don't identify with it. I haven't had a problem with that. So
it's happened that almost every time I enter a member, something bounces back, even with an edit. I changed my own email address the other day and it came back with a problem. And I'm not at all sure what it is. But when I have contacted RI, they say it's not you. But I don't know how we can address it other than every time going to RI to fix it. Or not. Sometimes I just say it's fixed and there doesn't seem to be any repercussions for that.
We did have a question prior to this thing about, and I've gotten it too, where Club Runner will send a notification and say there's a discrepancy between this and this. And usually, like Christine said, usually it's somebody that's a newer member or whatever. And each time I've gone in and checked, what they said was inconsistent. It was what RI had is what we had. So I just marked it as fixed. And I did put in a question to Club Runner about it yesterday or the day before, and I haven't heard back from them yet on that. But
there is a screen that says that you can reconcile the integration. And if you go into that screen, you can actually see where the problem is sometimes. And it might even be that RI have got that person with a different first name. We've got the shortened version and they've got the full version somehow. And you can just click it and say you want to go with the RI version or the club version. And that sometimes deals with it. But it's a bit buried in the site. So maybe that's, I'm not worrying about it too much. But I was a bit taken aback when my own entry was a problem. I'll have to go and look and see what the issue is. It doesn't like changing things.
That's a good point, because I mean, I had problems as secretary with, Robert and Bob, and they set up two different accounts because we didn't know. But anyway, it's probably important for your membership chair to get that right when they give you the paperwork to when the new member's inducted. And a lot of ours happened when we first put the website in because nobody was in there to start off with. So we just put them in as by the name they call themselves. So.
Pete mentioned that the Washington State Nonprofit Handbook 2018 edition is very useful for the club secretary. I have not seen that, but that's a recommendation from Pete. Washington State Nonprofit Handbook.
Yeah, this is Pete. I use that handbook all the time. It's very detailed. It's very well laid out. It's in its 3rd or 4th edition right now. And so when I'm trying to build the club record book, the corporate record book for the club, for example, or the what we are required to take by state law for minutes, I use that manual. It's very useful.
There's another question here from Neil that our club has had issues setting the next year's club dues before June 1st. Can't send out dues invoice until the next year's dues have been set. That's news to me, so I'm not sure about that. I never had any trouble sending them out, so I'm not sure what that means. I would guess.
I'm sorry. Are you talking about club-related dues or RN or district dues?
It sounds like our club has had issues setting the next year's dues.
Oh, well, that's a club issue.
Sending them out from Club Runner, I guess. So I think that would be a question for Club Runner, I guess. I don't have an answer for it, but I'm just raising it in case someone does.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys, with all your experience off the top of your head, know what the dues are this year for RI and the district, and then we add our club dues to that? What are those amounts?
Okay, I don't know. I think RI is holding its amount, but I can't tell you what it is off the top of my head because I haven't done it for a long time. But I am going to tell you that the district is going to be a communication. I'm surprised it hasn't come out yet, that instead of counting the roster as of July 1st, the district and this is just the district dues, not the IRI dues, is going to be counting as of September the 1st. So they're thinking that membership might change with this virus issue going on. So they're going to give clubs a break on time to identify the members as of the roster on September 1st. And I think the payment for district is, I heard it's going to be moved back to November. So, but there should be something on that. There should be a communication.
That email's already out.
Oh, is it?
It came out last week.
Okay. I got too many emails lately.
I didn't
Sorry.
get it. Somebody else, Suzanne asked, what are new officer voting procedures? Ours are in our bylaws, but they're generally, they come from RI, they're standard type bylaws thing. And anyway, we've always followed the same thing, which is there's two committees that are appointed by the president, the past president, and in our case, the past president and the past president. And they have two committees and they come up with the board members and get a new president and so forth. And then you have to vote by the end, have the vote final, you have 2 weeks of notice of it, and then ask for nominations from the floor and so forth. But it is a standard bylaws procedure that RI has.
I'm still confused, sorry. So what you're saying is at that time, a club selects their officers for the coming year and it's voted on what we would call the annual meeting in December.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not just necessarily, in your club, it's 2 officers, in ours, it may be 6.
Right, but
Yeah.
you have to have those officers identified on Club Runner, and you have to set them up on Club Runner. You can carry officers forward to next year. There's a function for that. And then you can make changes as you want, but once you set them, that's what the RI and district are going to be looking to. And what it does is it precipitates emails, like your club membership manager will be getting emails from the district club membership director and from the RI club membership director. So they're trying to specify who should be contacted. So
Another question was, why do we order supplies for the new year if we're doing Zoom meetings? Well, we're doing the same thing, but we're acting just like it's in person, and so that's how we're doing it. But I would think that you want, whatever you do for the past president and whatever you do for the incoming, you still want to do, because I don't think we're going to be on Zoom forever.
I want to just bring up, we just talked about the offices, identifying the next year's offices. I just want to let you know that this caught me one year because I wasn't secretary, and then the secretary left and I inherited the job back again, but they did not set that up, and it's very difficult to do after you pass the year boundary change. So on June 30th to July 1st, you cannot just bring your current offices. You have to go in and set them all up again.
So I personally want to thank everyone for your good questions and for being here and for your service as secretary. And I hope everybody has a great year as secretary. It's always interesting.
And I want to thank everybody as well. There's a second part. There's actually 59 slides in this presentation, which you will get. And most of them are on screenshots from the different functions, which include adding members, transferring members, corporate members. There is club document information on how to edit club documents, etc. There's attendance in there. There's all the things that secretaries normally have to do. There's screenshots of each one of those functions and arrows pointing to what you have to hit and enter. But thank you very much, everybody. I hope you got something out of this.